Before we begin, thank you very much to Tyrannicus, Emperor of Destruction Victorious. Yes, the title is a Doctor Who reference, for joining the Patreon campaign. That's a name. That is a name. Thank you very much for something that ridiculous. That's fun. Those are fun shoutouts. Thank you so much for the support. So TJbletops are rare. If you're watching, then obviously you are a tabletop gaming fan. You're a Dungeons and Dragons fan. So I will invite you. If you're watching this the day it went up, then please join me and my friends tonight on Twitch, 9 p.m. Eastern. We are doing scheduled conflicts. We are in the middle of what seems like a pirate civil war, and it's getting pretty mysterious and epic at the same time, and it's really exciting gameplay stuff. We've been having a lot of fun. So I'll leave the link to the description. We are over at Gob the Goblins page over on Twitch. Description will be in the link, and so will the YouTube channel, which will send you to the VODs if you're in need of getting caught up or want to see the past adventures we have already had. All right, so that's my cheap plug for my stream D&D campaign. So TJbletops are kind of rare on this channel because, frankly, they don't get a whole lot of views. I'll be completely honest about that. But we had some big videos this month. I think I can get away with it before we do the the viewer Q&A tomorrow. So we're going to be talking about something a pretty big deal for me and D&D in general, and that is my very first finished campaign. So I've played D&D a lot. I've played for years now, ever since I was still in high school, but I've never actually been able to finish a campaign from start to finish before. I've jumped in like halfway through some campaigns that were getting kind of close to the end, that were like halfway through and we got kind of close to the end, and those didn't pan out. I've done one-shots, finished a few one-shots, but any campaign I've joined where we went from like level 1 and the intent was to go all the way through to the final boss, it's never actually finished. Things happen, groups fall apart, life changes, etc. For the last campaign that I thought was going to conclude, COVID happened. And by the time COVID calmed down, people moved away, people got married and had kids. The things that happen in life that typically pull a D&D group apart. So I had never actually completed a full campaign before, despite years of playing this game, until this week. This week, we finished the final boss in a campaign that we've been playing online for roughly 2.5 years now. And yeah, for those not familiar with D&D, yes, that is how long campaigns go on. And frankly, if it's a role-play heavy campaign or a campaign that goes into epic levels and starts going into like big boons, then you could play literally for like 5 years in the same game, or I've heard of even longer. D&D is crazy. Sometimes you can just keep playing until you run out of plot ideas. But typically, once you get to level 20, you're heading into the end game. So that's basically what happened with us. And that's an exciting moment. It's an exciting moment because we started at level 1, got all the way to level 20, and we actually beat the big bad. We all survived. So we did it. we pulled off something that not a lot of D&D groups get to do, for all the various reasons I've already mentioned. And we did it with a character that is special to me. So the guy you're seeing on screen right now, we haven't actually talked about him like we have my other characters. This is Ward. Ward is a turtle barbarian. Turtles are what it sounds like. He is a big turtle guy. And I can send you around so you can see him. Yep, just big old turtle guy with big old hammer and dumb, doofy expression on his face. So I'm kind of known. I'm not technically known as a min-max player in my group, but I am known for being able to just come up with like really strong builds for characters. In the case of him, turtles can get a +2 strength bonus when they start out, and I just happened to roll an 18 when I was rolling up my stats. So Ward here started with a strength of 20. So which is as high as you can go without special items or achievements. So my boy got to be overpowered from the start. It basically like became like we basically played the game of like, if Ward is standing, we're going to win the fight. And and I don't like to be like the focal point of that, but like that's kind of what barbarians do. They're at the forefront, they do heavy damage, and they're the tanky boys. So they're supposed to get in close, supposed to take hits, and they're supposed to dish out as good as they got. So that's what Ward is. And which, considering the character is a pun, and there's multiple layers of pun to Ward, but the Ward is just like, his name is Ward. He's a turtle. He is my Ward turtle. It's a Pokemon pun. An early campaign, we made no illusions about that. We were very upfront about that joke. But he was fun. He's a lot of fun. So, he's my weekly power trip, where I get to swing his big maul, do massive damage, and listen to the DM describe just how badly I splat things. God bless my DM for being so generous with allowing me to just play this ridiculously powerful build. And so we didn't talk about Ward. So let's go through the stages of Ward, and I'll tell you exactly why this character is so much fun for me. So for starters, he is like a typical barbarian. He's a big dope. Intelligence is his dump stat. So playing dumb was a lot of fun. There are like little moments that I remember where I just get to play Ward is very stupid. We had a moment where me and Eagle Eye, our Era Cochran artificer, we had a moment where we're looking in on a shop that's getting raided by bandits, and then he's like, there's 3 of them in there, and there's 2 of us looking on the outside. So Eagle, trying to stay quiet about this, points to me, like, let's see, I'm trying to remember what the next exact numbers here were. I'm trying to remember what the exact numbers were, because there's where the joke lies. No, it was 2 of us and 5 of them inside. So Eagle looks over to me, and without saying a word, he starts saying, like, he holds, his hand out like this. And then my answer was, Ward waves back. Exacerbated, Eagle just like rubs his head, and then it goes like, points in there, it goes 5, it points at us and goes 2. And I say, Ward holds up 7 fingers. And the table dies of laughter. He goes like, you can't be that stupid. Oh, right, you've got a -1 intelligence. You can be that stupid. Moments like that were a lot of fun. Moments like that made Ward like really fun to play. Like, outside of just how like overpowered he was physically. The interesting thing about Ward is that his story revolved around his brother and a pair of hammers, the one he is holding and the one that corrupted his brother, leading to the death of many of his rookery siblings. The beads around his neck, you see, each one of those represents a family member lost to his brother and the hammer, and each one of them is super heavy. So like, he feels the weight of his fallen family every day he wears that, which is every day. He never takes it off. So he's carrying like a survivor's guilt element to him. What he's also carrying is the big maul. And the big hammer is named Greg. Greg the Hammer. Yes, wrestling fans, it's a Greg the Hammer Valentine pun. But in my mind, I'm like, so the origin to this hammer is he got it when his brother threw at his head attempting to kill him, and it didn't kill him. It just left this massive impact scar on the back of his head. And when he woke up and picked up the hammer, it starts talking to him. Or Ward thinks it starts talking to him. Early game, one of the most fun things about Ward was just randomly like talking to the hammer, and no one else, like just talking to Greg. They're talking really weird, aren't they, Greg? And Greg's a hammer. He doesn't say anything. So the party doesn't know if I'm just constantly concussed, if I'm brain damaged somehow. They don't know if the hammer really is talking. It was a lovely, like, little, like, goofball thing to do with the character early level. It does come out eventually that, yeah, Greg is alive. Greg has a soul of an ancient warrior inside of him. And Greg himself was a paladin. A paladin who was the original wielder of the hammer and fought against the betrayer gods with it. So this weapon was literally crafted to fight evil gods. Now, it's important to note at this point that we are playing in Wildmount, which, if you know Critical Role, means we're playing in that universe. We are playing the Matt Mercer verse, which means that weapons that fought betrayer gods were called vestiges of divergence. So the gimmick to Ward is that Greg was kind of his mentor, his spiritual guide, literally his spirit guide. And it was because Ward himself was true neutral character. He's tribal. He doesn't understand modern laws. He doesn't understand really good and evil. It's more like survival of the fittest type early on. So Greg is kind of his like angel on his shoulder. It's his moral guide. So he knows good and evil. And like a lot of times early game especially, it would be like the advice of Greg to like, maybe you should tag along with these people. Like it might do you well to travel in a group. So things like that. So Greg was kind of like guiding Ward, and like Ward was just very much, like a teammate would get blasted by a spell and Ward's answer would be like, sucks to be you, and he just walks away. Does whatever he wants instead. So I wanted him to grow as a character and like learn more morality. And as he grew, because of this gimmick between Greg and Ward, that meant that in order to always have Greg, the weapon would have to evolve and grow in power to keep up with the power spike everyone else was getting by switching out weapons, finding magic artifacts, etc. So in this case, because he is a vestige of divergence, it means that the weapon can awaken. So if we click over to here, we see a slightly advanced Ward there's a homebrew shield that causes like force walls to appear. And we see Greg awakened here, where now like he's got some inner glow to him. And a much angrier Ward, by the way. At this point, he knows what happens to his brother, so his stones now include one black stone amongst them. That is, like, I found out a long time ago that the way Ward expresses himself and expresses his connections is through the stones he wears. So that is kind of like my visual for his corrupted brother. I'm trying to think about like there's been a lot of fun exploring this character and a lot of the characters. I'm trying to remember all of it and try to keep this get down like concise video. But no, like this was like this kind of his quest. So we find out he was possessed by a demon. And the hammer itself, the evil hammer, basically just became a villain in and of itself, even after we disarm and like kill the brother, but his soul is trapped in the hammer. So that was a whole thing too. The demon trying to tempt everyone too. The weapon could appear as anyone else's weapon, by the way. So it actually tried to tempt our Aarakocra by turning into a gun for a minute. Didn't work. Everyone was good about resisting it. So that was a whole thing. That was Ward's whole thing, was trying to save his brother. And it wasn't like, he was never revenge. He was never like after revenge. That was the thing with Ward, is he's never like vengeance seeking, because it's not how his people operate, for starters. His people are very like tribal, down to earth nature type. He doesn't really acknowledge revenge. He just kind of wanted to know why his brother did it. And once he found out, it became more about the hammer and its influence rather than blaming his brother. At no point did he blame his brother. That was kind of like how his people worked. I had fun trying to figure out like how his tribe worked. One of the things about it was I took some inspiration from gargoyles in like the rookery itself, like the different generations in the rookery actually acknowledge each other as siblings, even if they weren't born of the same father, parents. So, like, when I say his brother, I mean his rookery brother. They are not actually, like, familial. Like, they could be. We never actually really established that, now that I think about it. But the other inspiration I took is that they gain their names through their experiences in the world. Once they find their place in the world through their travels, that's when they decide what their name is and who they'll be. So before this, he was just called Second Hatched. It was when he found Greg and Greg started teaching him that he gained the name Ward, because that's what Greg kept calling him, my young Ward, like a sidekick or a squire. So eventually Ward just thought that was his name. And I love like name tricks like that. I love name tricks like that. So we go on this grand adventure. Ward is obviously the meathead hammer of the party. And he gets through his lost family by discovering this found family, which is the party, which is where we get even farther in his character evolution. So at this point, it's not about, the necklace has now becomes sharpened and spiked. So now now it's about weaponizing his memory and his grief with his family rather than letting it weigh on him. He's adorned now with like pauldrons of feathers because him and Eagle Eye were kind of like a brother, like adoptive brother types. And you can see, as I said, he starts expressing himself through the stones he wears. So the buckler here he has on his right arm now has a stone that represents each one of the cast, the party, and then the large stone, which is again the black stone for his brother. So this is just how Ward evolved as a design. And then you can see Greg is becoming more awakened. Now he's a lot shinier, a lot more silver. So every time I did a new miniature for Ward, I tried to evolve Greg just one step further in his design, just to show the evolution of his power. The final one's my favorite, and we'll get to that here in a minute. Ward is a fun barbarian to play as because Ward is built for speed. And some of my favorite moments have to do with just how absurdly fast Ward is. So aside from taking feats that increase my movement speed, he was a totem barbarian, which means I can have different animal aspects that empower different things. So the first thing I took was an eagle totem that lets me dash as a bonus action and increases my distance. My base speed, normally in D&D is 30, my base speed was 50. And I could dash as a bonus action and not lose my attack, which means I could make it 100 feet and I could still whack something once I got there. And I loved the encounters because it made the table laugh every single time I did it. When like a villain thinks he's at a safe distance and Ward just be like 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever, 85, 90, 95, 85, 90, 95, hello, and they like run out of space right before I reach the big bad. I did that to one of like the final enemies because he was trying to escape the situation, and like Ward rushes through the room that we're fighting enemies in into a hallway, zigzagging through booby traps down the flight of stairs, and runs out of space exactly when he gets right into attack range and just bury the hammer straight into this guy's gut. Oh, it was amazing. Like when I was getting ready for my turn and I was counting out the spaces and I go, I have just enough. I got so excited. I get so excited to pull stuff like that. Oh my god, it was so much fun. And it was fun because the reaction it always got. He's a giant turtle who's the fastest one in the party. We had a situation where a rock, a gigantic bird, grabbed one of our party members and started to fly off with them. And Ward had fly on at the time, which between that, his boost, his speed, he could fly as fast as the rock and still attack. This gigantic flying bird, even dashing, could not escape Ward. This turtle who's flying through pure rage alone. Oh my god, it was so much fun. It was so much fun, these ridiculous moments. At the end of the journey, Ward has a moment where we're dealing with a we get our hands on a potion that we won in a raffle. Ward won in a raffle, and to this day, the DM swears it was a fair roll. That is a D100 roll, and somehow I actually got the mark to actually win the prize. He swears it was legit. The potion turned out to be something from one of the dragon books they had released at the time. So we're in a situation where we do the one thing you're not supposed to do, which is split the party. That was our mistake. So the party that had the party that was on the boat that drove on land, by the way, we had a land boat. I'm not even explaining that one today. They just got to deal with like common rabble, and they had cannons and pirate crew to back them up. You know, on this side, it was just 3 of us on the other side. And the thought again is, we got Ward, we'll be fine. We ran into a herd of TJbletop, which can turn you to stone, which happened to our druid. You know, the one who can undo stone. And then Ward gets affected. And when you get a petrification effect, you get 2 rounds in order to save against it, or else you're turned to stone. I failed my first attempt. So I've got 1 attempt left when it becomes my turn again. So you know what I do? I down the potion. Because I think to myself, whatever this potion, I don't know exactly what this potion does, but it's huge. It takes an entire round of action to drink it, when normally potions are a bonus action in our game. And there's a dragon scale floating in it. So Ward drinks the potion. What it turns out is that based on what scale is in the potion, it will allow you to turn into an aspect of the dragon represented by that scale. So if it's a red dragon scale, you get turned into like an aspect of a red dragon. Things like that. This was a platinum scale. There is only one platinum dragon in Dungeons and Dragons, and that is Bahamut, the god of dragons. For one glorious round, I got to play as Bahamut himself, which means I had legendary actions, which means like between everyone else's turns, I was just like thwacking and clawing and biting all these TJbletop. They didn't survive the round just through all the legendary actions. And it was a moment where I realized this is just too huge. Ward, who is like devoid of like a sense of right and wrong, has now like felt what it was like to be the literal god of justice. And it was an eye-opening moment. My true neutral character went from just like, I don't understand what these like things are in your world, to I understand justice, and that's what he became. He became a force for justice. He started like, studying and worshiping under Bahamut, which is not a direction I ever thought my character would go in. But when you have a moment like that, it just kind of feels right. I don't think I could have done anything else with him. So ironically, he's still true neutral because the DM never said, okay, bump your alignment up. You're good. You're definitely good now. But it was like this big evolution moment. And it took a character. I loved moments like that just take characters in directions you never thought they would go in. And it leads to this. Leads to Ward in his final form. The one you see behind him is Greg. You see his hand on his shoulder there. And there's the fully exalted form of Sunbreaker. Sunbreaker does an absurd amount of damage. I can throw it like Thor's hammer. It lets me float when I'm holding it. I can cast Earthquake with it, which helped against the final boss a lot. It was so overkill. But then again, we got thrown enemies that we needed overkill for. That's the thing with a good DM, is that you can have min-max players. You can have players with obscenely strong builds. You just need to build around it and give them challenges that are appropriate for it and counteract it. And that's what he did. So I still got I got this like crazy powerful character, but we still had a fair game, and we still had a lot of times where it felt like, okay, that was kind of close. The final boss especially got really hairy at a lot of points. But it was, but that's like the evolution of Ward. The first character I have ever had that completed a full D&D campaign. As I finish this video, our final epilogue session is going to be on Tuesday. And we just kind of have to figure out what our character is going to do. What do our characters do for the years after we have finished being adventurers and save the world? Well, I have a lot to think about on that one. Because, maybe even Ward doesn't know what he's going to do yet. But, yeah, that's how it goes. So, Tuesday, I'm going to say goodbye to the first character I've ever played that went from 1 to 20 and went from the beginning of his story to the end. And I'm going to miss my powerhouse of a turtle, but you know what? That just means there's a new adventure ahead afterwards. So, thank you for letting me reminisce on this character. Thank you for listening if you've listened this far. Again, as usual, the video's longer than I expected it to be. But I think in this case, I'm basically doing the memorial to a character that meant a lot to me. And a character that I had a lot of fun playing for over 2 years. Despite all the times we had political nonsense that was in over his head and I couldn't say anything. That'll happen, though. But thank you guys for watching, and if any of my party members or my DM are watching, thank you for giving me such a great adventure, and I'm still eager to have the next one. So, thank you everyone. I will see you next time.
I'm like, I think you guys got this. I will back away, and I will see you all later.
You've got this handled.
Alafi's like, really? You're not gonna help me? Like, it's fine now.
It's like these disgusting creatures breathing down my neck, and you're all just like, I believe in you. You got this.
All right, you seem to have this. 5 minutes.